All right, guys, welcome back to Heel Report, presented by Tar Heel 24/7. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and AJ. We're here for a UNC basketball-related drop today. As you put some juicy, I like to use the word juicy when I retweet your intel drops on Twitter, AJ, because you put a nice little intel drop about the basketball team and how the first week of practice is going, some of the things that we're kind of hearing from individuals behind the scenes and how they're performing on our premium message boards on Thursday. It was last Thursday night, correct? Is that when it went out?
Yeah, it was last day. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because the goal, I'd been accumulating for a couple of weeks, and I wanted to have it be their first thing Friday morning, the Friday of the open week, no football game. So, yeah, I was ready to roll, got it kind of finished up Thursday, ran it really late Thursday night for Friday morning. Very well received, as you would think. Lots of interesting stuff. There are some positive surprises, a couple of concerns maybe, and then a lot of things that I think we kind of figured we would hear. So I think if nothing else, people are more excited now. It kind of more whets the appetite because basketball's here. We have a ton of basketball access from the program coming up here in the next 5 weeks before the season starts, which is, 5 weeks from tonight?
Yep.
So is it 5 weeks or is it 4 weeks from tonight? Yeah, it's 5 weeks.
Yeah, it was 40 days earlier this week. I know that. So
yeah, okay, so it's 5 weeks. So we have a lot coming up. We got the Clemson Blue-White after the Clemson football game. There's an exhibition game against Winston-Salem State at the end of the month. There's the game out at BYU in Salt Lake that I'm going to. There's going to be a part of an open practice next week we get to watch. We get some interviews. We have the ACC tip-off.
Yep.
We have, I guess the open part in practice is 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks from
2 weeks. Now, next week is ACC tip-off. Plus, we get Caleb Wilson, we get Jaron Stevenson, we get Jonathan Powell, we get Derek Dixon for interviews. The overlap is here. Basketball season's here. They just haven't had a game and a one-loss record yet, but it's here.
Yeah, I joked with you earlier that I joined. I've Tar Illustrated previously, but I've been covering UNC for about 7 years now, and every year basketball moves up by about a week. It feels like, because basketball essentially this year started like a week after football season started, like in terms of like access, availability.
No, the next day.
The
day after TCU, we had Hubert.
It's crazy. So like
everything has moved up. The basketball overlap we used to get basketball on Basketball Media Day.
Yes.
And it would be like October 9th or something.
And that was the beginning.
And then we get ACC tip-off a week later, and then we get something a couple days before the opener, and that would be it. And I used to consider November was the true overlap month, and it will wear everybody down. Overlap starts in September now because Carolina has been so gracious in giving us a lot of access. So it's kind of interesting how we're getting a lot of access for the program that everybody's clamoring for, and a program that doesn't have to because it doesn't technically need local media that much, right? No. So to speak. And the other one doesn't give us nearly that. They've been a little bit better, but basketball is kind of showing them the way to go. You give us the players, man. Let us talk to the players.
Leading from the front, man. You love to see it. You love to see it. I know fans love to see it as well. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to run through some of this intel. I don't want to give it all away because, again, the people who paid hard-earned money to read this kind of intel, and that's why you're on our premium message boards on our website. You can sign up, link in the description. But I want to go over some key kind of things and maybe some of the bigger takeaways from the drop that you put out. Now, I want to start with the 5 position, AJ. Well, we can talk, and we'll talk a little bit and kind of combine this together with the front court as a whole, but I want to talk about the 5 position because Henri Veesaar is a guy that a lot of Carolina fans are high on, and he was a guy featured prominently in your intel drop for a lot of positive things, really impressing staff on both ends, described as kind of a true rim protector and a versatile defender, and a guy that the high-low game, as we have alluded to, alongside a guy like Caleb Wilson, seems to be something that's getting a lot of positive attention early on. Now, I think that's good. Caleb Wilson, another guy, defense has been talked about a lot in the drop, and a guy that, despite being a true freshman, maturity was a word that was mentioned, being a little bit more of a mature guy than his age necessarily represents. And we've obviously talked a lot about his work ethic and how that kind of feeds into it as well. But I think the front court is something that's being talked a lot because of the high end of Henri Veesaar and the excitement around Caleb Wilson. I want you to talk about those guys, but I also want to focus on beyond that, particularly the backup 5 position, because a lot of this intel drop had a lot of positives in it, and rightly so. Everybody's fantastic in September. But I do think there are question marks behind Veesaar. Let's say he's in foul trouble. It's kind of like James Brown and Zayden High and Ivan Matlikovich, and he didn't play a lot of high point. There are question marks beyond him. So first and foremost, hit on what you've heard about Veesaar and Wilson in particular. I know I talked a little bit about it there. And then let's let that lead into maybe some of the question marks of, okay, well, what's behind a guy like Veesaar? Because again, I think there are some maybe concerns there, to say the least, right now.
I think the flexibility and the multiplicity of this team is something that I keep hearing either in direct words or when they start describing or people start saying, well, I think they could do this well. I think they could do that well. Last year, the question was clear. Are they good enough inside? This year, the question isn't, are they good enough inside? And the question also isn't, are they good enough on the perimeter? There's an expectation that they ought to be at least pretty good in both. So maybe the foundation is pretty good at both because they should be able to shoot the ball well. Question is, what do they have at the playmaking side of things in out on the perimeter? But as far as the inside goes, the thing actually that I'm hearing about Henri Veesaar is that there's the true low post presence that he gives. Yeah, he could step out and hit a three. Really good high ball screener. He could pick and pop. He could roll to the rim. He can protect the rim defensively as a help side defender, but no one really talks about his on-the-ball perimeter defense. So I asked about it, and what I'm told is that they actually have an interior on-the-ball defender, like someone who could deny, someone who can use their lower body to move another postman off the lower block a little bit. So when they catch the ball, they're not in the same spot where they do all the drills from. They're a little further out. They make it a little bit more uncomfortable for him. Then you add the 7-foot length. You add the wingspan. You add his ability to anticipate shot release. And you've got a situation where a guy can affect shots at the rim, like on someone whom he's guarding, and also help side at the rim. And there's also a help side sort of rip and run. Let's say he rolls to play help side defense. Shot is attempted, but it's missed. He's there to rip, turn, and run, and get the ball, pitch it up ahead, and get it going. There's a lot of things that he can do that they simply did not have. People in the program thought that Jalen Washington would be a little bit better help side defender than he was. People in the program certainly thought hoped he would at least be an average screener. He was not. And that diminished a lot of things right there. You got a little bit of it from Lubin late in the year, but Lubin was limited because of his length, and they didn't have other long guys to pull length away from him. This year's team will have other long guys that can pull length away from Henry. So he's going to be in some ISOs on offense, and it's going to allow him to do a lot more stuff. I'm told that he's got a nice little couple bounce jump shot game, whether it's a turnaround or a little bit off the glass or some things like that. But what people really, really, really are excited about him, and these are things that we heard before he got to Carolina, and here's some things that he even talked about a couple of weeks ago, is his ability to play with other people on really a lot of spots on the floor. He can go out and set that screen. He could pick a pop or pass. I had someone in the program tell me they think Henry could lead the team in assists. He's that good and he's that willing.
If you go watch his Arizona highlights, you can see like glimpses of what you're talking about there. Like it's not hard. It pops out pretty quickly when you start watching him.
If the ball gets into him in the lower block, it's not a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
He can get out and you can reset. He could find cutters. That's why I think that what excites me about this team, which we have not seen at North Carolina in a while, is the ability for the high-low, but incorporate the baseline game into the high-low.
Yeah.
I really think Jaron Stevenson, when he plays the four, can be a really effective baseline player. I think Caleb Wilson can be a very effective baseline player. And if you've got one of them on some people call it the dunker spot. I'm saying coming in from the four on the baseline, and you've got Henry as a high post and doing a little high-low action. I can see that. I can see if he could throw an alley-oop, I can see a high ball screen, flip back, fake three, oop to a Caleb Wilson weak side on the baseline for a dunk. I can envision something like that, and I think the people around the program can envision that. So Henry is a guy that doesn't have to be in a certain area of the floor to be super effective. Now, he's not a soccer athlete. He's not a baseball center fielder gliding around the floor, so don't mistake him for that. But there's enough nimbleness, enough athletic ability, enough straight line from the screen area at the top of the key to the basket to the rim where he can be very, very effective. Mm-hmm. So his name comes up all the time.
Oh, and
part of it is because they haven't had a 7-footer since Kessler, and he's 100 times better than Kessler was as a freshman. He's more accomplished, more experienced, all that kind of stuff. So I think maybe because he's sort of an exotic fruit in Chapel Hill right now, that's why his name comes up. But I also think it comes up because he's really good, and people think that there's a chance this guy could have a massive, massive season. If there's somebody that's the national media is overlooking on this roster, and I think they're overlooking the roster, they're ranking the team, but they're overlooking the roster a little bit. A guy like Henri could be that dude. He could end up being so much better and so much more decorated in April than people anticipate right now.
Yeah, he's I've said it multiple times, but he's the most impressive pickup and the guy that I expect from the portal additions to have the biggest season this year. Like I alluded to earlier, the concern is what's behind him. So what can you tell us about that? Because from my understanding, it does feel like there are, based on your drop, some internal concerns about, okay, let's say Veesaar gets in trouble or God forbid he gets hurt and misses some games. Where do they go from there at the 5 position, AJ? Because there's nothing I can point to behind there that says, well, they've got this guy behind there that can fill in. It's like they've got some guys, but the production has not been there before.
Yeah, because basketball practice starts so much sooner. Just in recent years, we started doing basketball practice reports, intel reports like we do for football all the time. And in football, I think I did 3 of them maybe during fall camp. And it's kind of interesting when you go back and look at those reports and see how things have played out. Most of them were pretty accurate on some things. Fortunately, I had some very good sources there. But one of the things that I always find glaring is when you don't hear about somebody.
Yeah.
It's not so much what you hear, it's what you don't hear.
Yeah.
I'm just not hearing anything about Zayden High. And what I'm hearing about James Brown is, he put on 25 pounds in the offseason. Kudos to him. He looks bigger, looks stronger, looks more confident. But how much confidence do you think the staff has right now that if against Kansas, Henri picks up a second foul at the 15:40 mark and they got to go the rest of the half, piecing it together at the 5? I think you end up buying more Caleb Wilson at the 5 than you want. And what that does, there's a trickle effect with that. That's what they want to avoid. But I don't know if they'll be able to avoid that this season. I just don't know if James Brown will be ready to give them. I think he can give them 3 or 4 minutes. He's stronger. He's physical. He's a pretty decent rebounder. I thought last year he finished around the rim a little bit better than I expected. But that's when he was in situations he'd have to play through contact. When he had to play through contact, he'd lose the ball and everything. He's stronger now. That's why he got stronger, to play through contact. But if you're going beyond 4 minutes there, I think it gets tricky. Maybe you put High out there for a few minutes today. Maybe you roll Caleb in there for a few minutes. You just keep rolling those guys through. Maybe that's how they get around it. I don't know. And we won't really know until we fully see what this team is all about. But if we're going to present a checklist of boxes of things that are to be concerned about, and I'll do something like that at some point within the week of the Central Arkansas game, that's going to be one of them, and it may be at the top.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the most glaring weakness on this team right now. And when it comes to trying to compete at the highest level, you are only as good as your kind of weakest links. And I'm not saying they're weak links, but if you don't have a guy there at the 5 that you feel good about that has produced before they can come in, especially when Veesaar is a guy that we expect to produce a lot, that is a concern, and you'd be remiss if you didn't bring it up.
I'm going to call it a question mark and not a weakness yet, because it's not a weakness until we see for sure.
I would say on paper it's a weakness.
I got you, because a lot of what I'm talking about are things that I'm told too, because I'm not at practice. We do get to see him in a couple of weeks. We're not going to be able to learn too much from that. We'll learn some stuff out in Salt Lake City. We'll learn some stuff against Winston-Salem State, but it's going to take maybe until we get into December before we truly know if there's going to be any help behind him at the 5.
Yes. 100%.
It's going to take some time. There's no doubt about it. So it's a question mark for sure, a very potential weakness. If they're pushed to that, maybe they're very fortunate and Henri doesn't have much foul trouble and he doesn't get hurt. And if that's the case, they can run with him the whole year and they'll be in really, really, really good shape for the 34 minutes a game he plays.
Yeah, he'll be definitely playing a lot of minutes this year for North Carolina. I want to talk about 2 more guys again. We're not going to give away everything in here because it is premium content, but 2 more things in particular, 2 more guys I want to focus on real quick that stood out from the report. I want to talk about Luka. Obviously a guy that people are just intrigued about because there's a lot of newness there and there's a lot of like question marks of like how does that European overseas kind of basketball guy that's a little older, how does that translate to the highest level of college basketball? But from what we're hearing, I think this is the most interesting thing we've heard about Luka. I think there's a lot of positives being said about him, but correct me if I'm wrong on this. From what we're hearing and what you reported, it seems like he's a guy that isn't necessarily going to hit the ground running and maybe will take some time to kind of bed in and adjust. Is that kind of the gist of what you're hearing about him? It's not like, oh, he's a bad player. No, I don't think that's it. It's just like there's a lot of things to like about his game, but there is also a lot of newness. I mean, he just moved to a new country, number one. There's a lot of adjustments that come with that.
Yeah, we ran a few things about him a couple of weeks ago. Seth Trimble, was it Seth? Seth had some very interesting things to say about Luka, about how he's assimilating off the court, about the communication. He said the players were surprised one day they went in the locker room and Luka is sitting there moving his head back and forth, listening to a song that they like.
Oh, there we go, Luka.
They probably figured he'd be listening to some, Montenegrin Orthodox music or something like that. I mean, he was jamming out to whatever they like to jam out, and Seth saw that as a positive. And I think it's a sign of Luka really trying very hard to connect and embrace the culture and the food and all those things. So that's all part of the equation. You just don't step in somewhere and just play ball and that's all it is. Because professionally, you could do that. He's got to go to college too. Yeah. And he has to be around people. He has to immerse in things outside of basketball, and that's a massive adjustment. From a basketball standpoint, we heard this very early on, and I know that I put it somewhere, maybe on the board, but the depth of it I was saving and wanted to see how it would change. One of the early takes was that he was struggling with the length and speed, the closeout speed and quickness on the perimeter. So if you go back and look at his highlights last year, the last couple of years, you're not seeing, think of the 6'7" wing at Pitt or Miami or Florida State or Syracuse or somebody closing out on a 3. That didn't exist where he was before.
Yeah.
A, the length, B, the quickness, C, the speed, D, the hops. And also that guys in the States are closing out all the time defensively. So they're good at it. And it's comfortable for them to do that. If dudes are closing out in Europe, let's say, if you're trying to compare some similarities, it's just not going to be the same closeout. Mm-hmm. So he was having some trouble with that a little bit. And with that, you would think, you're going up, I'm going under. Couple dribbles, pull up jumper. He's got that in his game, but he's learning to utilize that more. He's also getting the shot off quicker. The length is not affecting him as much, what I've been told. But I think the belief is that while he could be a really good player, maybe have some very big early games, the consistency of his game, the whole of it, may not be fully caught up and meshed until maybe Christmas time. It could take a while. But the cool thing about that is I'm a firm believer that you don't want to play anybody who watches college basketball knows this, you don't want to play your best basketball in November. No. How many teams that are number one the week after Thanksgiving when they win some early season tournament end up being number one late in the year? It doesn't happen very often. That's what I think is kind of intriguing about this group, is that it's going to take time to come along. Hubert's going to be learning, adding, refining, moving this part a little bit, moving that chess piece a little bit, seeing, try to get to where it's the best version of this group it can be. Hubert historically has taken a while to do that anyway. So maybe this kind of matches sort of where his comfort is as a coach, and continue. And remember, he's a Dean Smith guy. You wouldn't see the full rotation until the end of July or end of January, early February under Dean Smith. That's when the full rotation was locked in. A lot of times it was like that with Roy. So Hubert is not in a panic if he doesn't have his 8-man rotation ironed out by the time they go to place Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic. I will maintain that he needs to learn his team better sooner than he's shown that he has. And a lot of the times you make those moves in the lineup when you do learn your team better. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe he does. He's just a guy that keeps trying things. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Last year's team was a challenge. It's easy to criticize him. He didn't have a lot of answers. You're either going to go small or you're going to go really small.
Yeah.
There were never anything but that. I think the diversity with this club allows him to tinker because he is tinkering. It's not because he's got no other options. Well, let me just throw 4 dudes 6'4" and under out there and see what happens with a 6'8" center who doesn't get up in the air very well. I don't think that's the case now. And because of that, Luka's game has time to grow. Like, I think they need to win early games. I believe that I think Kansas is a must-win game. They're going to have to either beat Michigan State in Florida or beat Ohio State in Atlanta, because you don't want to get into the ACC schedule having very little on your resume. And they don't have as many resume opportunities this year as they did before. At the same time, I think there's enough there that being at home, Luka could be in full-on adapting mode, or whatever you want to call it, and still win that game. If Luka's actually cleared to play by then, by the way, which is still
there's still that kind of question mark.
So I'm a little long-winded on this, but I think that they have patience for Luka, and they've already seen enough progress that they know it's going to come. It's not a matter of when Luka looks like he's been playing in the States for a long time. It's not a matter of if he's going to do that. The matter is when it's going to happen. And I think if it's Christmas time, Carolina fans should be thrilled with that, because you still have some a couple of non-conference games, and you have 18 ACC games plus the postseason after that. So it allows the team to keep growing and getting better. Imagine if Luka goes from kind of hot, cold, and then hot, warm, cold, to hot, warm, to hot, hot. By the time you get into January, the team just hits another gear. So his growth could be commensurate with the team's growth.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, he's a guy I'm very intrigued about because of just all the newness there and kind of the unknown that he is because of where he's been playing. But there's a lot to like about him, but I don't think it should be a surprise that it's like, yeah, he might need some time to gel in. Like, yeah, I mean, he's a lot of new stuff when he just adjusted, man. I mean, it's huge just from a human standpoint. There's a lot of newness there. So one more guy I want to talk about. We'll end with this guy. Derek Dixon. You talked about guys maybe forcing their way into the rotation a second ago. Hubert having more options and being able to tinker, not because he has to, but not because he necessarily is disappointed with what's on the court, but because he has the ability to do it because other guys are stepping up. And I think Derek Dixon was maybe the guy in the report that I was the most surprised about with some of the feedback that he's received. I know you got a special place for Derek Dixon because he's a Northern Virginia kind of guy. Went to Gonzaga High School. You probably grew up playing against Gonzaga High School. Knowing where you're from.
Yeah, but my thing about him, what really kind of got me about him, he's a DC area guy, so I like DC area guys. I admit that. But he was the Washington Post Metro Player of the Year.
And that's big. Special. That's big. Yeah.
And they just don't hand the award to the guy with the best stats. They watch the game. That league might be the best high school basketball conference in the country. I know it was back in the day, but it's extremely competitive. The Math is in that league. O'Connell's in that league. It's extremely competitive. McNamara and Mackin used to be. Mackin, I don't think is even there anymore. Archbishop Carroll, some incredible high school basketball programs where teams at the bottom of the league send 3 or 4 guys to D1 schools.
Yes,
it's really good. So MVPs are guys on winning teams. MVPs are competitive dudes. And when I read about why the Washington Post made him the player of the year, it was that edge, that competitive edge he played with, the ability to knock down the tough shot, but also get the stop on the other end.
Yeah.
The guy that was sort of the engine, if you will, of a very good high school basketball team. And so they know what they're looking at there when they give out that award. You go back and look at the history of it; it's incredibly impressive. So that told me that there was sort of a little bit more refined, a little bit more mature, edgier element than what maybe some of the clips would show you. Clips just want to show you buckets and stuff like that. But there's so much more to the game. And I told you actually a few weeks ago, I think it was in late August, that I'm hearing good things about Derek Dixon. In fact, we were hearing it in the summertime, and then they reconvened for class, and I'm still hearing it. And that's why he's in the report. I have never not heard something good about him. It's all positive, and it's getting more positive. It went from, hey, this guy might be able to see the court this year and get some playing time, to, hey, I think he's going to be in the rotation, to now he's going to be in the rotation. And we just got a couple of days ago an email about our availability for press conferences coming up, the players that are going to be available to us. He's one of them.
Yeah.
He's a freshman, and he's one of them. So clearly he's made an impression. I think this is big because if you have someone who is an identified backup point guard, he could go out there and play with Kyan. When I asked Kyan Evans a couple of weeks ago, give us a self-scouting report, first thing that came out of his mouth is catch and shoot. He's a point guard.
Yeah,
he's more a lead guard. He's calling himself point guard. I think he's more just a lead guard, to be honest with you. But you can bring Dixon in the game, take Evans off the ball, and he's a catch and shoot guy. You can run stuff for him. And oh, by the way, Dixon's 6'4", and he can shoot too. So it's another shooter. It's a little bit more length. I know Hubert wanted to get longer, but if you think about it, even if Evans comes out, imagine this lineup. And this is bringing in some bench. Dixon at 6'4" at the point. Luka 6'6" at the 2. Stevenson 6'10". He's not 6'11". He's 6'10" at the 3. And then you've got Ori and Jonathan Powell 6'7". Stevenson at the 4. You've got Stevenson at the 3. Caleb at the 4, and you've got Henry out there at 7 feet.
It's a lineup.
Hubert wanted to get big. Well, good God Almighty, he got big, because guess what? He was 6'4" and shorter for 4 of the guys in the starting lineup for a stretch last year. He's completely flipped the script on that. A, they're bigger. B, they're going to be better defensively, because he brought in all big time plus defenders, right? Guys that are in like the 90th percentile and better. And he also brought in a lot of different players that can knock down threes. Yeah. It's not just a couple. So if you've got 5 or 6 guys that can shoot threes, you're not reliant on RJ to have a really good game from the perimeter to win a game. If 2 of them are hot, boom, that might be enough. Yeah, and the way the ball's going to be spread around, I think that you'll find if someone's hot that day, you'll find them, and then you could find them again. So they can go big. I know you're going to say something here. So they can go big. They can do all those other things, and I think Dixon gives them maybe a piece that they didn't know they had when they put together the roster in September. They weren't sure what he would be able to do. Back in April when they put together the roster. They weren't sure what Dixon would give them. Now he's giving them something more than what they thought that they were going to have. And I think that that's a positive.
Yeah, I think Dixon might be the biggest positive from this intel drop, because a lot of it's been positive in the drop. And like I said, everybody's great in September. But you look at Dixon and you say, well, one of the biggest question marks we've had about this team is like, okay, well, who backs up Evans? Let's say Evans comes in and he's not as good as we thought he would be, or he struggles to adjust for a little bit. Like, what's the option behind that? And I've joked with you, I think I've said it on camera, like, if Carolina goes into ACC play in like November, December, and Seth Trimble is running point because Evans is struggling, that's not good. There needs to be somebody else back there who can kind of step up. So when you hear that Derek Dixon is kind of pushing hard for that role, you hear some of the stuff that's being talked about. I mean, high IQ guy, efficient scorer, a strong shooter, a good passer. You also hear, you could foresee, like you mentioned, Evans and Dixon potentially playing together at the same time. I really took that as a massive positive. Now, what that actually leads to in season is different, because we know how difficult it is to play point guard in North Carolina, but we've seen some true freshmen come in under Hubert and maybe not hit the ground running like they should have. And point guard is a very difficult position, if not the hardest position to play at North Carolina. We've talked about that for a long time. So I'm still taking it with a little bit of pinch of salt, but it is good that you're actually hearing a lot of positives about Dixon. When on the flip, like you said earlier too, if his name wasn't being really tossed around a lot, then that is a concern, because if you're not hearing about him, that means there's probably not a lot of positive things to say about him, or he's just not a guy that's standing out. So like I said, in the intel report, I looked at that Dixon thing and said, okay, we kind of expected that, but that for me kind of ticks that box of, okay, maybe Carolina does have more options at that point guard position than just a guy like Evans. And if he doesn't do it, well, here you go, Seth. Here's the keys, man. Like, that's not a win-win situation for North Carolina, in my opinion.
We're calling it point guard, but I'm hearing lead guard a lot.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, and because lead guard's an important distinction here, point guard is what you thought Elliot Cadeau would be. Point guard is Ty Lawson. Point guard.
Yeah, running the show for you. Yeah.
It was Joel Berry was a point guard, but was a lead guard too. Point guard, that kind of thing. What I've been told is, don't be surprised if Caleb Wilson brings the ball up the court some, because he could pass and cut away, essentially, right? But he could pass and cut away where it's taken seriously. It's not the backup point guard. His whole job is just to get him in the offense. Pass, cut away.
That's more of a modern
thing. But I think that what you have here is you have a group where, like in Evans, I've said this about Kai Evans a couple of times in podcasts, he doesn't have to be such an uber intent point guard that to get what he needs to get or to get the team going, he could pass, cut away, and the ball could find him again, and he could score. If the ball found Elliott last year after he got rid of it, he did at Notre Dame at the big shot, but he didn't always get the ball back in a position to score. He got it back and started the dribble again. Mm-hmm. I envision less of that with this group, because it's get the look from whoever can get the look. I see more ball movement. I see more. I see less stagnant over dribbling with this group, because maybe none of them have that uber point guard mentality. We'll find out. Evans kept calling himself a point guard, but remember, I asked him a scouting report, catch and shoot. I mean, Derek Dixon, if you go back and look at the Derek Dixon, I put it in the write-up. Adam Finkelstein's scouting report of Derek Dixon this time of year ago, heading into his senior year, and it's all these things I'm hearing now. But the one thing I'm hearing more about now is lead guard, distributor kind of guard. So he doesn't have to sit there and break it down, and doesn't have to be either Derek Phelps in 1993 or Raymond Felton in 2005 or Ty Lawson in 2009. Doesn't have to be any of those guys. He doesn't have to be Kenny Smith. He could be a little bit different, because there's more length out there. There's more square and shoot guys. There's an interior option with Henry. There's just a lot more stuff that I think the onus on the point guard being the true classic point guard in the frame that North Carolina fans have come to love and embrace and remember historically might not be an ingredient on this team. And it might not be a necessary ingredient on this team in order for them to win a ton of games. It's being done more now without the traditional point guard mindset around the country. And maybe that's finally landed in Chapel Hill, and maybe they end up being a better basketball team as a result because of this composition. If you don't have a great point guard, I guess you don't really want anybody trying to be a great point guard, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You don't want someone dribbling way too much. Elliott could dribble, still make some stuff happen, but he also got tied up a lot and everything sort of slowed down. And then RJ would get the ball and then he'd dribble a lot. I just don't see that happening. If it's happening in Fort Myers and Izzo has a way to sort of, strangle some of their offensive options, and there's a lot of over dribbling, it's a bad sign.
Yeah.
And then we'll revisit and say, okay, well, what we were being told and what we were anticipating hasn't exactly played out yet that way.
Yeah, I think it's
that's where Dixon becomes important, because I don't see him as a pound it, break him down, kick it out, that kind of guy. I see him getting in guys into an offense, and if he gets the ball back, he has the ability to make something happen and get a teammate involved, but also the ability to score.
Yeah, that's just a shift of the modern game. Really, you go watch like NBA now, and you like 1 through 5 can bring the ball up on any given team. I think that's kind of Carolina, and in a way, shifting away from that traditional PG, which, like you said, Carolina's so associated with, and stepping into more of that modern game where you've got athletes and you've got guys that, hey, like Caleb Wilson can bring the ball up, Luka can bring the ball up, like Derek Dixon can bring the ball up, Kion Evans, Seth Trimble. Like it gives you more options than just saying, hey, these are my 2 point guards. If any of you other guys bring the ball up the court, you're coming down and sitting down. Like that's kind of what you used to see with like Roy and stuff back in the day, but that's just how the game's kind of shifted a little bit. So yeah, man, it's good though. I think the Derek Dixon news is positive because there are question marks, just like the backup 5. That's a question mark. I think the backup PG or who can kind of fill in at that spot and run the show, quote unquote. Maybe it's not as important based on what you're saying, but I think there are question marks there. And if a freshman can come in and step up and at least give you some solid production off the bench, I mean, it's definitely not a negative. So yeah, that was one of the biggest positives for me in that Intel drop. So I will link the Intel drop below as well, so people can go look at that on our boards. Again, we didn't go through everything because of people paying their hard-earned money to view that kind of stuff, but those were some of the bigger takeaways, in my opinion, at least, of what I read from it. But there are a lot of stuff. There's some stuff on Jaron Stevenson in there, Jonathan Powell, obviously, Seth Trimble being talked about, and also some other guys maybe who aren't being talked about as much based on what AJ's heard or in that drop as well. So it's definitely worth checking out and giving it a full read if you haven't already. But I think we can wrap it up there, right, AJ? I think that's a good enough little sample size for the people. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones, another edition of our daily drop. Get involved in the comments. Let us know what you think about what we talked about in here. Are you kind of optimistic and excited about this team? Are you concerned about that backup 5 spot? Are you concerned about maybe who can fill in as a backup point guard? Are you feeling pretty good about it all? We want to hear from everybody in the comments below. And as always, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell too. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.